Year 10, Mr. Tapley here to walk you through your next lesson of Year 10 Geography in Week 6 of Term 2. This lesson, we're kind of extending our knowledge of climate change Part 2, if you will. In the previous lesson, we worked on our knowledge, our understanding of climate change. And this lesson, we're trying to apply that knowledge to some scenarios. So we're developing our skills this lesson. So our learning intention to understand the evidence supporting the existence of climate change, and to practice our data interpretation skills. That's what we're focusing on. These skills to pay the bills. In our success criteria, accurately interpret and evaluate climate change data in graphs and maps, and then to connect research and statistics in these graphs and maps to the causes and effects of climate change. So, this lesson will be examining research data and statistics. We're throwing out the textbook, not reading through Mr. Tapley's slides. We're looking at some numbers, some pictures, pretty pictures. And all of this is related to climate change. So in the previous lesson, as I mentioned earlier, we developed our knowledge. The focus of this lesson is to then apply that knowledge to some skills. So developing your skills in data interpretation. In geography, we represent information visually. We try and focus on visual information, so graphs, maps, infographics, because we feel it helps understand some of these complex topics. If you're confronted with a climate change graph and a 20-page climate change essay, you're probably going to look towards the graph. So that's why it's important that we can identify patterns or trends in these graphs and maps to understand the significance of the information within. So, okay, I can identify that that number is going up and it's connected to that number going down. Understand the significance of that information. So, okay, that is connected to this, which means that this is the cause and that's the effect. And then to explain that results, to write that down so you can demonstrate your understanding to others. So, what we're doing this lesson is a little climate change worksheet. I know it says assignment, it says learning test there. It's just because, I can't actually hand you the worksheet through the window. So the climate change and data interpretation worksheet, located in Google Classroom assignments, and I'll show you where that is, and we'll work through the worksheet. The worksheet can be submitted at the end of the lesson. If you have any questions or concerns, whether that's IT issues, you're having trouble viewing or submitting the file, or you are having issues with the content, please let me know, obviously. So let's go find that worksheet. So we're on Google Classroom here, we've got our assignments tab, we've got resources where the class slides are, and then assignments. Speaking of assignments, I did mention it in the email I sent out today, Tuesday, but I was blown away, absolutely blown away with the results for the dev task. You guys absolutely killed it. It was super impressive, super amazing. So just huge big ups, well done everyone on the dev task. I was very happy with the results there. And if you have questions about the results or concerns, or you think you need me to talk you through the feedback I've left on Compass, please let me know. I just wanted to highlight those. Such a massive positive. Really, it made my day when I was going through those assignments. Like, yes. Anyway, this is what we're looking at today. Is the climate change worksheet. So you just need to click on that there, and it'll open up something that looks like this. So, this lesson, you investigate some research evidence and some statements explaining the impact of climate change. Before you start scrolling down, you're like, oh no, 3 pages. Super simple. This is it's a mix and match activity, basically. Y'all did this in primary school. It's basically some graphs, some images of climate change data, and you have to connect the dots, because I'll be giving you 4 graphs, and then I'll be giving you 4 statements, 4 little paragraphs, mini paragraphs, sentences of information about climate change, and you just have to connect. This one is talking about this graph, and this one is talking about this graph. So read through the statement cards below and interpret the information presented in each graph. After completing the activity, record a brief reflection on your level of understanding of climate change. So the definition, the cause, the effect. At the end of the document, I'll show you where that's located as well. I'm not after an essay length response there. I just really want you to be like, you know what, I understand climate change, thumbs up, or I kind of understand it but I don't get this part, or I have no idea, please, you need to review this stuff in a bit more detail. And before I get into the information, you'll see that we've included just a glossary, a mini glossary of key terms for those of you that don't understand those terms, or it's going to be these words will probably show up in the statement cards and those paragraphs below, so we wanted you to have an understanding of them. So climate change, of course, is what we're looking at. A change in global climate conditions caused by increased levels of CO2, carbon dioxide, in the atmosphere. So all that burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, agriculture, pollution, it's changing our global climate. And then global warming, again, not the same as climate change. Climate change causes global warming. Climate change causes the temperature of the Earth to increase, caused by the enhanced greenhouse effect. And greenhouse effect is that science term which basically describes Mr. Tapley's very simple primary school diagram here. So solar energy comes down, hits the Earth, heats it up, but because there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere, that blue band there, the heat gets trapped, and then the temperature of the globe rises. So that's called the greenhouse effect, for you science nerds out there. And then enhanced greenhouse effect, just another step, another process in this greenhouse effect thing there. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Again, not doing science, we're doing geography. So I might zoom in a bit so you can actually read these bloody graphs. So there we go. So I'll take you through these 1, 2, 3, and 4 graphs, and then you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I said paragraphs, really it's a couple of sentences. They've done their own little PQE of these graphs. And again, all you have to do is connect the dots basically. So which graph matches which statement. So the first graph here that we're looking at, you can see, it's a long day, I'm having trouble talking. You can see measures world atmospheric CO2 levels, carbon dioxide levels. On the y-axis here, so going up and down, we're measuring how much carbon dioxide, how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. And then on the x-axis, the horizontal, it's going throughout history. So 400,000 years ago, 300,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, 1950, and then the current level of today's CO2 levels. As you can see, it's been going kind of up and down like a natural sort of process, but then something's caused it to spike way the heck up there. So that's measuring CO2 levels. So what you would then do is read through these 4 statements, see if you can find one that matches that graph, that describes that graph. So this one's talking about sea levels. That's not really the focus of that previous graph. I'm going to ignore that. This one's talking about temperature. We're getting a bit closer, but I'm not sure. This one's talking about, well, y'all can read that. And this one's talking about the ice levels. So yeah, you just have to match it down here. So in the space provided, match the graphs with these statements about climate change. So graph 1 is obviously referring to Blair, which is statement Blair. Cool, cool. Then I'll quickly buzz through these other graphs. Graph 2 is showing the mass of Antarctica. You can see on the left there, it's showing Antarctica's mass, so Antarctica's size, and then how that's progressed throughout history. So 2004, it was this size. 2010, we're getting smaller. 2014, smaller, etc., etc. Graph 3, we're looking at the sea level changing in terms of the height of the sea level. So again, a part of global warming, part of climate change, is that the polar ice caps are melting, and if you melt ice into a body of water, that water is going to get higher, larger. So you can see the sea level is getting slightly taller, slightly taller, slightly taller. It's all the way up there in 2016. There you go. Another good way to kind of match these graphs with these statements would probably be to, obviously you're looking for what the graph is measuring, but also for those dates. So if you see 2016 somewhere in one of these statement cards, you might be able to find some of that information. Anyway, and then graph 4 is measuring the global land ocean temperature. Temperature anomaly is how much it's changing. So how much the temperature has changed from 1880 to 2018 or 19, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, so you match the statements to the graphs, you record that information down here, and then question 2 here is just where you're writing your little reflection. Again, not like a super detailed essay level response, just a couple of sentences. I'm not asking, it's not a test, I'm not trying to trick you into giving me information about climate change. I just really want to know, is there anything that we need to revisit in class that I need to spend a bit more time explaining, either in a one-on-one situation or adding it to the slides or in the future lessons. And yeah, that's what we're working on today, guys. You just need to submit that by the end of the lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know. And yeah, best of luck. Cheers.